I really believe that our feelings give us our experience of life. So if there were two big things, it's one, give yourself some spaciousness to really allow things to settle, to actually hear yourself. And then two, really go on this journey of developing a relationship with your feelings and really allowing yourself to experience some of the uncomfortable stuff. Because what's really cool is when we sit with the discomfort, it shifts, it changes. It doesn't stay stuck. It doesn't become stagnant. It actually moves through us.
Hello, and welcome to the Connect podcast. This show is all about helping you connect to your soul's calling so you can take action on it. Because the sweetest success is a blend of discovering your purpose with the inner drive to bring it to life. I'm Sheila Botello, health coach, lifestyle entrepreneur, and mom of two, best known for my online wellness programs, mentoring, and self-love passion. Listen in for inspiring interviews, solo chats, and Q&A sessions that will move you past overwhelm towards what lights you up. Stop accepting good enough and go for your version of great in your health, business, and relationships. Let's get started. If you want more joy in your life, you're going to love today's episode. Danielle Brooker is a joy coach working with highly ambitious, stressed out women in their 30s who are stuck at a crossroads. She takes them from questioning, should I or shouldn't I quit my job, to living a more joyful life regardless of what job they're in. Spending over a decade building a career in economics and policy, working for government and health charities, she kept finding herself in great jobs she didn't feel great in, questioning what her next career move should be. A stressful burnout led her to take time away from work and begin to build a new relationship with busy to get back to feeling like herself again. Passionate about growth, great coffee, and all things well-being, through her coaching, she now supports women who are transitioning through phase-of-life issues. At their core, they're wanting to reclaim their lives from busy and from people-pleasing to finally feel like themselves again. Her business, The Daisy Patch, offers a range of support from private coaching programs and group masterminds to digital courses and her podcast, Let It Shine. Find out more about Danielle's work at thedaisypatch.co.uk or connect on Instagram at thedaisypatchcoaching and LinkedIn at Danielle Brooker. Enjoy the episode. Hi, Danielle. Welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here.
I'm really happy to see you again and to be here having this conversation with you.
Well, we've known each other for a while now, and I was on your podcast back in the spring. Yours is the Let It Shine podcast. Anytime I connect with you, I feel uplifted. This joy that you embody, is that something that's always been a part of you, or is it something you've had to fight really hard to make a part of your ethos?
First of all, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. That is the absolute intention, with the podcast and also just, with who I'm being. So, oh my God, this is actually a juicy question, and you may not have realized that in asking it, because I would have different answers depending on when you ask me this, but I'll tell you my answer right now, which is that absolutely joy is part of my being. I have always been a positive, sunny, uplifted, energetic person. However, I started to dim that light without even realizing it, actually for quite a while, and not dimming it in the sense of I shut it down completely, but just starting to notice that I thought maybe it's a bit weird to be this happy, or maybe people don't want to look on the bright side of this thing. Maybe they don't want me to just subtle little things where I found I would just hold back a little bit. And I didn't realize that. I didn't even know I was doing that until I did an exercise probably about 2 years ago now, which was, you had to go, I went out and actually sought feedback from the people in my life, from a wide range of people, friends, colleagues, family, loved ones, a mixture, and asked them what they thought were my great qualities. And time again, they kept coming back. And the common theme was your positivity, your sunniness. And I had this big aha moment. I was like, oh my God, the very thing that everyone else loves about me is the very thing that I feel like I need to hold back on and not be too bright about, or not I don't know, in some weird way in my head and body, unconsciously, I thought it's a bit too much. People don't want this. People want to just if they're sad, they want to be sad, or if they're having a challenging time, they don't want me to come in and, be joyful. But I've unlearned all of that. And very quickly, that was a switch for me. It was almost like the permission I hadn't given myself yet to just be like, okay, well, that's it. Like I was being myself, but now I'm really being myself. Yeah.
I love that so much. And thank you, because I have had that experience also. I'm the rose-colored glasses girl, always have been. And many times I felt like I had to temper my joy because of various things people were going through. But then again, same thing. That's the thing that people expect from you and I. I think that's why I really identify with you. And I always love connecting with you because we reverberate that joy back and forth to each other. It's so needed, especially now, don't you find?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, I guess I used to not make the connection with the fact that, like you'll hear me say this time and time again, which is feeling good is not just about feeling good. Like, sure, prioritize feeling good in your life and being joyful. It makes you come alive. It's more energizing, but there's actually so much more beneath the surface to it. And this is what I teach a lot of now, because it's what I've come to understand deeply in my life, is that holding back on that positivity was actually holding back on all of the love that I wanted to give the people in my life as well. I thought, oh, maybe I'm helping them, but I'm not helping them if I'm not showing up fully as myself, if I don't feel centered, grounded, energized. And actually stepping into the joyful side of me is when I feel most centered and grounded. And I guess also to say, because we are, like we connect in this way, for listeners maybe who may just have a little bit, like you might have noticed just a tiny little like pullback in your body, or a little bit of a, oh yeah, or like rolling of the eyes, even if it's a teeny tiny feeling right now. I want to bring to your attention that, like, when we talk about joy, when we talk about really deeply stepping into that power, that sunniness, I'm not talking about erratic peaks, right? I'm not talking about like skipping down the street with joy every day and someone having a really tough time and me saying, just cheer up, it's fine, we'll get on with it. Like, to me, that's very surface level. Like, the kind of joy that I talk about and that I've stepped into more fully in my own life it's deep. It's coming from an inner place. Sometimes it's really quiet. Sometimes it's really subtle. Sometimes it's really slow. And I think a lot of the time we tend to associate joy with, oh, I need to be happy all the time and smiley and, high energy. And I don't believe that that's actually what we're talking about.
I totally agree. It is like the foundation of where you live your life from and how you approach your circumstances. And you can be in your joy and be in empathy for what other people are experiencing. And you can also be in joy and in grief simultaneously. I've had that experience, and that's something I really do want to dive into more on this podcast, because we are in a time right now of a lot of peaks and valleys in terms of, the uncertainty. And then, hey, maybe something good will happen. Should we feel joyful about that because this is a tough time for people? It's like, how do we make it all work? How do we find that symbiosis? Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so much to it. There's so many layers. So I want to go back now and cover a little history, because, I totally love your accent. And I've always said that. I love culture. I love accents. I love hearing people's history. Share with us, where were you born? Where did you grow up? And where are you living now?
Yeah, I've been on a journey. So I was born in South Africa. My entire family is South African. I am the youngest of, there's 3 older sisters. So when we immigrated to Australia, I was 9 years old and spent most of, my upbringing there. I did my university. I had my first big, real amazing job in Australia. And then this dream that I'd always had, that I thought was a fantasy world, kept tugging at my heart, and that was to move to London. I'm going to cut the story short, but essentially I moved to London, and I've been here for 7.5 years now. So when we first moved, I moved over with my partner. So he's also Australian, and I was like, oh, let's just go for like a year and see what happens. And this is what happened.
So good. What's your favorite thing about London?
Oh my goodness. I sometimes have described my love for London. It sometimes feels like I'm in this long love affair, like a really healthy one, right? Where I love being in London, like the places that are, that are the touristy hotspots in some way, but it's not about the hotspots. For me, there's this, it's a feeling like the city really has this, I don't know, like this life of its own. And it has an energy to it that just feels really welcoming and really vibrant. And one of my favorite things is the diversity in London. Like literally, I could explore a new neighborhood every single weekend if I wanted to. I could eat any possible food in the world. The people that I meet, one of my favorite things about being on the public transport here is that I hear like a gazillion different accents. You would love it.
I would.
And yeah, and different languages. And it really is this beautiful, vibrant, it's a transient place. So you got to get used to people coming and going from your life. And yet also it's this beautiful, like melting pot. Anything is possible. I once joked, I was like, I bet you literally that is true. Anything I wanted to do or create or find, it would exist in London. And this was years ago, and I was actually planning a hen's weekend away for a girlfriend of mine. And I was like, oh, what if you could, I love musicals, I love performing, I love, dance, even though like I'm not very good at any of that. And I was like, oh, imagine if you could just go and star in your own musical production. That would be my dream come true. And I know I was planning it for her, but she also loves this kind of thing. And we managed to find a choreographer to come in and teach us all these dance moves and do a little mini performance, just our group. And there were all these other ways, like you could literally go and hire a theatre in central London and like be on the stage for the afternoon. I didn't end up doing that. But yeah, so it's that sort of thing that just, makes me come alive.
Danielle, that is amazing. And that really speaks to what this podcast is about. It's about like taking your dreams off a shelf and actually taking action towards them. And you love music, you love musicals. It's not like you had to quit your career and move to a different place. I mean, you did move to a different place, but for different reasons. And you managed to find a way to enact what that dream would feel like. And then who knew? You could have gone through that process and said, I really am going to start my way down this path towards another incarnation of that dream. Thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful story. And I'm going to keep that in my mind because it's so easy for us to just think, oh, wouldn't it be nice? Oh, but I'll never do it. That'll never happen. It couldn't happen for me. Really, anything is possible, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I love what you touched on there, which is bringing the feeling into it, like taking that dream off the shelf, because sometimes we can get fixated on what that initial image was. But I'm really at this place where I'm questioning myself, okay, well, what is it about, let's take the musical dream, for example, like what is it about that feeling of wanting to perform on stage? And over time, what I've realized is actually I've found a channel through, in some strange way, I have found a channel of that through my business, because in my business, I get to speak. I get to share my message, and I'm not saying it's a performance because like, this is me, like this is how I am in real life. But that feeling of being on stage, that feeling of like creativity and like dynamics of different people coming together and expressing, I get to do that through my business. Like, so I've found a channel for it. And it was interesting when I started to think of it in that way. I'm like, wow, there are aspects of the dream that are living in these different ways. I don't have to, beat myself up for not becoming a Broadway star.
So good. So good. Right. Because exactly. We are kind of groomed that, ooh, you're good at singing, you're good at dancing. That should be your career. That should be the only thing you focus on. But really it can be both and. You can be a variety of things at any given time, and it can change throughout the seasons. And you can go with what feels good to you while you're making a living or doing it as a living if that's what makes sense for you. So good. So you mentioned how back in Australia you had your big, fancy, amazing career. Tell us what that was, because it is a bit of a departure from what you do now.
Yes. So, and definitely when if I just say what it was, like I was, essentially if I put it in the simplest possible way, I was an economist and now I'm a joy coach. So if I just say it like that, it sounds like it's worlds apart. However, I actually know exactly how they connect. now. So I was, one of my first jobs was working in a government department in Australia on public policy. So on really cool things. I worked on climate change policy and, supporting small businesses. And I really learned how to talk to a wide range of people and write, like my writing skills. That was really my foundation, and really be able to like see things from different people's perspective. And then I had this analytical side of me, which was the economist. It was just after the global financial crisis. I'm trying to remember, even like during roughly around that time. And so ministers were, particularly our minister was very much watching things on a daily basis. So we'd get into work every day, see all the various reports and updates, put it into a tiny little brief. So it's like taking complex things, putting it on a small piece of paper. And that was my life. It was a great job. It was a really great job. I got promoted quickly. I had the most incredible bosses and mentors and people who I really value and respect. That was part of the reason why I almost hung on to it tightly and clung to it and thought I should do this next thing. At the time I was like, okay, well, what do you do next? You get the promotion. Okay, now what do I do next? I go get my master's degree whilst working full time and like all these different things. And it was because I was trying to kind of fit into the picture of what you do. Now that you have this job, this is what you turn it into. And there was a part of me that still had this dream to work in aid and development and really work on that international level. And so that's what I partly studied in my master's. So it was all very much like, this is how you take the next step to achieve the next thing, to be really successful. But also there was that heart in me. It was just that the strategy was leading, not the heart. So that was my first big career. And I did shift then when I moved to London into more of a third sector space. So I worked more in the charity sector. Now I kind of think of this metaphor as almost like I was standing one foot still in the very like head strategy, smart, right thing to do camp, and one thing in the no, I'm justifying this. This is moving towards my dreams. I really like this. So I was still kind of straddling at that point.
Sometimes we need that transition time. We need to get our footing. Some people are great at just diving right into something new and just getting messy and figuring it out as they go. And then some of us take a little longer and we move with what feels right and we dip our toe in the water. It's still forward motion. I think we really need to always tap into what is it that makes us tick? What is our method? And I love that you followed yours. And I do see how it completely connects with what you're doing, because here you are, an expert on leading women to remove stress from their life so they can reclaim their joy. And so here you are, you've experienced what it can be like, and you may have had joy. It sounds like it was a joyful experience for you corporately and working in the government. But for some people, they don't have that experience, and you probably saw that as well where you were working. So you can identify. So tell me what some of the things that you do with the women that you talk to, like what are some of the practices you teach them to instill in their lives?
Yeah, sure. I just want to backtrack on them for a moment, because I gave the very real picture, and just this kind of touches on your point that you said before, like if you experience joy, you can also be experiencing grief simultaneously in your life. Yes, it was a joyful experience, a nourishing, learning-filled, time of my life. And I had a major burnout, and completely my body went kaput, and I was completely stressed to the max and tried to do too many things and had migraines and digestive issues and had to take time off work. So I had both. I guess I want to check in also for listeners who might be going through a pretty tough, challenging, frustrating time working for an organization right now, is to also check in, because I've really had to watch my language after that, because we can very quickly go into blame mode. Oh, it was the job. The job was so stressful. My boss wasn't supportive. But I had to get real with myself and go, actually, I was in a very supportive environment. I have to take some responsibility that I just hadn't quite figured stuff out yet. I didn't quite know how all of the dots connected. I didn't know that I had to follow my feelings. I didn't know that I had to let go of some things. So I really wanted to highlight that whatever your experience is right now, like I really honor where you're at. And I also invite you to check in and just ask yourself, like, well, what part of this do I or could I take responsibility for? And I know that's a tough question. So maybe ask it with love and compassion for yourself, because it was that point that I started to make some decisions. That was when London was like, hey, you keep saying you're going to come. Are you coming? Are you coming? And I had to start choosing my joy. So your question, sorry, Sheila, to go back to your question, which was, what are some of the practices I teach the women in my life now?
Yes, and this is great. I'm so glad you added that part because, of course, nobody has a perfect experience anywhere. They could be living on a beach in Hawaii and weather's perfect all the time and they have unlimited disposable income. There's still stressors. That's just life. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'm thinking about some of the success stories you've had. Maybe think of one person who you've helped guide them along from a place of pain to pleasure.
Oh, pain to pleasure. I love that. So it tends to be a lot of the women I work with are very much, high achievers, which I believe a lot of us are. And sometimes that comes with a connotation of like it's a bad thing or something. And I don't believe it is. It's not what we do, it's how we do it. And so a lot of the women I work with have essentially, they are ambitious. They do want to do well. They do want to contribute to the world. And yet they've got themselves in a tangle with busyness. They're kind of overdoing this, pushing themselves, being pulled in multiple directions, wanting to take care of everyone in their lives. And this point about pain to pleasure, as I'd say, so I'm, thinking of one beautiful client, really coming to me at a time when there were big changes going on in her life. There was a relationship that was breaking up and she was, moving on from that, but that wasn't really the thing that she presented with. She sort of just said, she's just been feeling a bit stuck. There's, a high pressure career that she was working in and other big changes going on. So it's like, well, what do I do with that? I know that I normally feel more joyful than this. Like, how do I reconnect? So one of the steps, really to go from that frustration and the pain often is about the relationship with busyness, particularly for the women that I work with. And so that's our starting point. My step for everyone, I say, is space. Some people, that is a little pause. I stepped away from the office for 2 weeks and I think I didn't go back for 6 or 8 weeks. My initial, I need that full reset to start changing how I was. Now space is part of my every day, part of my every hour. So that's kind of step one. And that can sometimes feel a little challenging because as the person who wants to achieve, if I tell you take a little break, you're going to freak out, right? So I say everything happens in really small steps. So we really learn a process of being okay with building small habits, little by little, and allowing that to strengthen your muscle. Because when we don't stop, or let me not even say stop because that sounds sudden, when we don't create these moments of spaceness in our life, what tends to happen is our head just keeps going. We stay stuck in the cycle of overthinking. What's next? We haven't even stopped to be like, oh my God, yesterday was an amazing day. That was really cool. I really had fun on that project. Or I love the fact that, I got to catch up with my best friend for a coffee at lunch. We tend to just race ahead and we want to know what next, what do I need to fix, how can I be better? And so that's, a lot of the women I work with, and let's just be transparent, that's me, right? That's been my journey and I'm learning a better way to do these things. So space is definitely just learning that relationship to allow that to just get your thoughts to settle, to get to know yourself. That's really the process that we go on. The second part, so you asked me for the journey, so I'm jumping around here, thinking back to this beautiful client. The second part, if there were two main things, one would be space and the second would be a relationship with your feelings, which is this point that you really talked about around grief and joy. Because when we're holding tight, we tend to hold on to things like busy or procrastination or numbing out on Instagram, whatever it is for you. We've all got something. We tend to do those things when we, right? So, I'm feeling too stuck. I've got to make a big decision about my career. So we kind of go, oh no, I'll do it later. I'll do it when I've put the kids to bed. I'll do it when I've finished that project. I'll do it after I've, spoken to mum to check in and make sure she's okay. There's always a reason. So we create a way to kind of not feel the pain. So it's kind of like a numbing technique. And I talk a lot about that with my beautiful busy women. Whereas if you're blocking your pain, you're also blocking your joy.
Yes.
And this is actually something that Brené Brown teaches. She has this beautiful quote that says, I'm getting it close enough, which is we cannot selectively numb our emotions. Meaning you cannot choose like, oh, I'm not going to feel angry and I'm not going to feel grumpy, but bring on joy, bring on exhilaration, bring on, fun. The emotional spectrum is like, it's all of it. And I really believe that our feelings give us our experience of life. So if there were two big things, it's one, give yourself some spaciousness to really allow things to settle, to actually hear yourself. And then two, really go on this journey of developing a relationship with your feelings and really allowing yourself to experience some of the uncomfortable stuff. Because what's really cool is when we sit with the discomfort, it shifts, it changes. It doesn't stay stuck. It doesn't become stagnant. It actually moves through us. You've got me on a topic that I love now, Sheila, so you're going to have to butt in and stop me because I could just keep going and going on this.
I could listen and listen because you're right. That I love that piece about we can get stuck, but if we actually allow ourselves to sit with our emotions and feel them, we move through them. Because in my experience, sitting with an emotion, you start to move towards the path of, well, what got me here and what could get me out? So you actually, while sitting in it, you can actually find solutions. And
Yes.
I try and teach my kids that too. Whatever you're feeling, allow yourself to feel it. Don't shove it away. I think that is the challenge with the way many of us have been raised and what exists in our society as the norm of, no, just shove it aside and move on and keep going and keep going. But then how do you know you're going in the right direction? Because some of these experiences we go through are there to be our biggest teachers. And so we need to be willing to listen and follow that feeling in order to get some answers. Oh, that was great.
And I believe that when we're not allowing those emotions in, we think they're going away, but they're not. They're just staying. Like we've all got that drawer or cupboard in the house that's just like the junk drawer, and you're like, oh, don't look at it, just throw it in there and close it. And it's kind of like what we're doing with those emotions. I think to this time when I had to like step away from work entirely, and when I did return to the office, my boss was incredibly supportive and very helpful, and there was a transition back to work period. And then he said to me quite honestly and openly, which I really honored and appreciated his feedback. He said, look, you do whatever you need to do. Like the most important thing is that you feel supported. He said, and I would, it would be really cool if you could keep me up to date with how you're feeling. Like he said it in slightly different words, but he's like, because it kind of went from nothing, like from his perspective and the team's perspective, it went from she's amazing, she's like firing on all cylinders, she's incredible, to oh shit, where's she gone for like a month or two? Like, so they didn't even have any clues because I would hide those feelings away. So the more you hide them, the more likely they're gonna come knocking at your door. So welcome them in early and often.
So you said that you actually took a hiatus from your work, and that was before you actually made the move to the UK. And you said it was 8 weeks, 6 weeks?
Yeah, it ended up being about 6 to 8 weeks. The doctor signed me off on, essentially mental health leave or stress-related leave because all of the physical symptoms that I thought could just get fixed with a tablet were not getting fixed. I was saying, oh, I need something stronger. My migraine's still here. And she was saying, honey, there's more going on here. And I'm so grateful for her as well. I've not always had that kind of supportive, open experience in that world, but she was special. She was exactly what I needed at the time.
Oh, bless her heart, because look where you are now as a result of that. Imagine if you had not taken that time. I mean, we don't want to go down that path, but you may at the very least just still be in that career, which could have been great. And yet you wouldn't be in the position of helping so many more women. And when you talked about how we shove our emotions away in a closet, I thought of Monica on Friends. And I got to say, I am also a loyal fan of the show. I don't know how many times I've watched the episodes over the years. And there are so many little one-liners that describe everyday situations that happen in our life. Like pivot, we're moving, doing some renovation at the house, and my kids who have seen some Friends clips, now they'll say that. So it's just kind of a fun thing. I would say I'm a combo of Phoebe, Rachel, and Joey. And who are you a combo of again?
So let me just, what do you say? Phoebe, Rachel, and Joey. I think I say I'm Phoebe, Monica, Chandler.
Yes, I think that's what I heard. And I mean, when we say that, everybody can pick out, okay, what are the characteristics? Yeah. Anyone who's watched the show anyway, but of course the fanatics like us, they'll really get it. So, and it's true when you say we're a combination, it's like, we're not just one thing. We're not one flavor. You know, we are a variety of flavors on any day, as we were talking about, I think before we hit record, the different seasons in life, different stages of life. And as I talk about with like cyclical self-care, depending particularly as women, what our energy levels are and where we're at in our cycle, like it all impacts what we're putting out into the world, how much time we need to ourselves. And when we actually tune into that, we can be doing the exact thing we're meant to be doing at any given time.
Yes.
So I would love for
Pretty
you
powerful.
to tell us what is next for you. I know you've got some neat things going on. Please tell us all about your latest things you're doing that people can get in on, and also the best place to reach you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place is to head straight to my website, I would say, which is thedaisypatch.co.uk. And from there, you can explore all the bits and bobs. So as Sheila mentioned, I have a podcast, the Let It Shine podcast, and you can go and check out Sheila's episode. If you're a listener over here, you might want Sheila's side of things as well. So go and listen. And on social, like as far as social media goes, Instagram's my favorite place to be. That's pretty much the only place you'll find me, at least actively. And I do have really exciting things coming up. It's been a really interesting few months for me. Just talking about emotions as well, there's been that full spectrum. I was having a conversation with my sister the other day, and she used this expression of like the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And I was like, yeah, I get that. Like I could describe my year in two different ways. One being the most challenging, heart-wrenching, transformational year, and the other one being the most uplifting, clarifying, on mission and purpose year. It's been both. There's a couple of really cool projects that I've been working on that are coming up over the next few months. I'm not sure when this will be live. One of the things that I do is I have a monthly membership club called Joy Club, which really was born out of an intention to connect, particularly when things started changing in 2020 and people, in some ways it felt quite sudden. We needed to then, shift the way we were doing things. And I just did a call out to my immediate inner community and said, hey, do you want to gather? Do you want to come together and let's just check in and refocus our attention on joy on a monthly basis? So that's organically grown, and that is now my membership program. So if you want something like that in your life, you can come and check out my Joy Club. And then I've got an exciting new program coming up. It's more of a group immersion program, an 8-week joy journey, which is about to be birthed.
That's starting beginning of September, I believe.
So Joy Club will be open for membership beginning of September.
Okay.
And then this program will be open for enrollment, but it'll start late October.
Excellent. Oh, so good. It has been such a pleasure connecting with you today, Danielle. And I thank you so much for the joy and for sharing your story that really brings so much hope to all of us of what is possible in our lives.
Well, I appreciate you so much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here with me on the Connect podcast. If you like this episode, please share it with someone you think would enjoy it. Also, if you head over to iTunes to leave a review, I'd be so grateful. Let us know what your favorite parts were and what you'd like to hear more of. It will help us have a greater impact, elevating many more people to grow and succeed together. See you next time.